guys, welcome to Primer Podcast. My name's Jessica Flake. We're here this week with Rickiah from Elon First Baptist. I'm so excited for you to do our podcast with us.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. So it was just such a great time to always have James with us to do our message. He's been, I think this is the third year that he's done our Storytellers.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So this year, well, tell us a little bit about what his message was this past Sunday.
So this past Sunday he came from 2 Kings 4, I believe it was 22 and 24. And he was talking about just really faith and how to get through tough situations. And so the story is about the Shunammite woman and how Elisha comes to her and says, this time next year you're going to have a son. And she pleads, don't get my hopes up.
Right.
I'm my husband's old. I don't have kids. Don't get my hopes up. And he says, no, this time next year. And surely enough, within the year, she has the child. And as the child gets a little older, he ends up getting sick one day. They rush him to his mom, and he dies in his mom's lap. And so in that instant, it's how do you handle these tough situations? The promise or the hope that you were given, you got it, and now it's gone. So,
Right.
How do you handle this situation? How do you react in this time? So,
Yeah, like it. Well, I'll actually read that passage, and so it's
I
Second
think it starts at
Kings.
8, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'll just read the part where he has passed, and then she says specifically she talks to her husband, and it says she called her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and a donkey, so I can go to the man of God quickly and return." "Why go to him today?" he asked. It's not the new moon or the Sabbath." "That's all right," she said. She saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Lead on. Don't slow down for me unless I tell you." So she just pretty much left and knew that she needed to talk to Elisha, and without really explaining anything.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting part, that she didn't say, hey, he's dead. We got to go get somebody to help. She just said, hey, I need a donkey. I need to go. And doesn't really, like I said, she doesn't explain it to anybody.
Right. And her husband's questioning because in his understanding and his thought is like, you only go see Elijah when it's the Sabbath or the new moon and times that you're going to worship. And so it's interesting that when I first read it, I thought, that's kind of different that she wouldn't have explained why she was going to see him. But then my mom heart, because I'm a mom of 2 boys, and so I can tear up now. So I can understand her being like, I can't explain this. I just need to go.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah. And so the thought of what was breaking her heart is understandable. But how often do we not go to prayer first or go to God first? And so I know I've thought about that so many times, or when I guess I have a question of like, have you ever had that in your life to where you've just, something happened and it was a crisis, just an emergency, and you didn't have time to explain your actions and a step that you took?
Yeah, so I don't know if necessarily crisis, but one of the first things that comes to my mind is, so in 2016, I moved to China.
Wow.
To teach English.
Yeah. Wow,
And it was a call that I felt was on my, like, that God was telling me, like, this is what I want you to do. And in that moment, like, compared to this story, it's not the same, but in that moment for me, it was urgent because things that were happening here were so pressing, and I was stressed, and it was so much going on, and this was like my exit plan. Like,
yeah.
But I couldn't tell anybody. Well, I chose not to tell anyone because the questions that would come with it. Like, the husband started asking questions to me, like, well, why are you going? But I knew people were going to ask, like, well, why are you moving across the country? There's schools here you can teach it. Like, why are you going? You're going by yourself?
Right.
You you don't know nobody over there. So it was so many questions. And so that was like a faith move for me, knowing like, okay, this is what I know God has told me, or this is what I know God has promised me. I've got to do this regardless, and not sharing and telling other people, because I don't want anyone to try to talk me out of it. I don't want anyone to try to, put into my head other thoughts or discourage me from the promise that I already know is mine. So that's kind of one of those first things that I always think about in those like faith moments, and not sharing with other people, because you never know what telling other people can do, or how it may destroy or get you off task for where you're supposed to be going.
Discourage you or stop your steps. Yeah. I know for me, this was just recent, actually. I had a mini crisis at home. It wasn't really a huge crisis, but in the moment, it kind of felt that way. So I got a phone call. I was literally in a meeting here, and we will do that from time to time. We'll see, somebody's calling, and so we'll pick up the phone. And so I stepped out thinking it was going to be very brief. And so, but realizing, okay, I needed to head home, but I couldn't set the phone down because of the person that was on the other line was needing me to continue to encourage them. And so I just stepped back into the room, grabbed my stuff, and left. And with no explanation at all, no eye contact. Like, well, I think I did some eye contact with the people that would understand, and I just left. And of course, I had text messages. I was like, "Is everything okay?" And but like that, knowing that there was a need to just leave, and knowing that I needed to be at home for that moment. And um and that was what was on my heart. God was telling me, like, I needed to be there in that moment. And like you said, I didn't want anyone to stop me from, for whatever reason it was. And so I didn't necessarily want to give any type of explanation. And so in this type of circumstances is where there's a death. Like, I can imagine just the emotion that was going through her head, and like you mentioned, the promise that Elijah told her. She couldn't imagine God was going to take him away that quickly.
Yeah.
And so the feeling of, okay, I just need to go and talk to Elijah. And the rest of the story is that, Elisha comes and breathes back in, life back into the boy. And so the her belief in what God promised her was such a just a amazing step in faith that she just continued to have from the very beginning.
Yeah. That's the awesome part about it. And what I can appreciate about the sermon as well is that he also deals with, well, what happens when God doesn't resurrect your promise? Or, what happens when you have something and it does not come back? And so just, really listening to him, and because we always want the shout of the text, as we would call it. The shout of the text is that, the son was resurrected, but what do we do in those situations in life where things aren't resurrected, and we may have to sit in that sadness, or may have to sit in that a little bit longer. So I can appreciate being able to look at, both sides of the coin with that.
Right. Yeah. I think just the knowing that James's heart of I forgot how he said it exactly, but I think in a note that he wrote me was don't freak out. And I think that's what I got out of those specific verses, is that she didn't run or hide in the way that sometimes I think a lot of times in a crisis I tend to escape and try to feel like I can just escape my feelings. And so that feeling of what she did, she just pursued her feeling of, okay, this is God's promise, and I need to understand what this is looking like through Elijah. And And yeah, so with what you've experienced with just from the message, what do you feel like sometimes is your way of coping sometimes with different outcomes? Like, are you um, an escaper? Do you tend to go straight for whatever is going on in your life?
So I would love to say that I'm like a woman, and when something happens, I'm just peace,
Yeah.
and I just figure it out. But I can catastrophize, as some people call it. So I can go through every scenario that could potentially happen in this situation, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, things that could probably never even happen. But I'm going to think through all of those, and I have to really stop myself and say, hey. Like, take a moment, take a deep breath. And sometimes for me, that involves doing like breathing exercises, like square breathing or meditations or things like that to really kind of focus and center myself. Because otherwise, my brain will go everywhere, my heart rate will start raising, and then I'm just in a whole nother space. But really taking that moment to say, like, okay, take a moment, what did God tell you in this? Or what do you know to be true? And so remembering like no weapon formed against me will prosper. And what I like about that text is the shout of is like nothing's going to prosper, but for a weapon to form, that means that there will be weapons that will form. There will be trials that come, but they're not going to prosper. They're not going to damage you, or you're going to bounce back from whatever it is. And so that's kind of how he also ended the sermon as well, is it'll be well. Like it'll be well. Whether things turn out like I wanted to, or whether things don't, it'll be well because God is with me, even still. So regardless of what I face and regardless of the outcome, if it's what I expected or not, understanding like it will be well. So it is well. That was my grandmother's favorite song. It is well.
That's a great
And
song.
so I also kind of keep that in the back of my head often, like, okay, whatever happens, like all will be well. It'll be all right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing and being part of James's team. I know you're pretty much his right hand girl, I guess, right? So, well, thank you for doing the podcast with us, and guys, we hope that you have a great week and enjoy your time in your study. Hope to see you soon.